Everybody, Marco, don't laugh. Welcome back. We're back. Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks. And I'm Dave, and we've got Marco and Paul here, and Chris is in the background pulling all the strings as usual. How you guys doing? Marco, what are you laughing at already?
I'm just an idiot. There's no explaining it.
Just a regular idiot chuckle?
Yeah, I'm just a meatball. There's not much going on up there.
Well, I'm a meatball today too. It's been one of those days. It's been a Murphy's Law kind of day. So hopefully that won't affect the webcast. But
I gotta tell you, I'm feeling a lot better looking at Paul. That's a good looking man right there.
Oh, jeez. Now you're starting to scare me.
You're gonna make me blush.
You're starting to scare me. Welcome back, everybody. Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks, the show where we at HotHardware.com talk about tech. Paul, the good-looking man, how you doing? We heard how Marco's doing. A little goofy, apparently.
I am doing well. Feels like a Friday for some reason. Probably because I'm slacking on work. But yeah, I'm doing well.
I'm with you. It should be Friday. If it didn't feel that way, it should be. Yeah, just crazy good stuff. Lots of good stuff going on. We've got a ton in-house to look at these days. Whether you talk smartphones, whether you talk big iron PC, enthusiast PC stuff, you name it, from mobile to the desktop. We are just swamped in gear. Everybody's just launching stuff, and it's a beautiful, wonderful thing, but it makes for long days. So we'll stop whining and just dive right in and talk about the week's headlines. I think probably one of the most talked about names in tech these days, and certainly in the PC enthusiast circuit, would be AMD and the Ryzen processor, and their return to competitive footing with Intel on the desktop. And Marco, you took a look at the Ryzen 5, their mid-range family, to compete with Intel's Core i5 family and maybe some Core i3s, depending on what you're looking at. But yeah, you put that series through its paces. What do you think about it? And is it every bit as a good value as Ryzen 7 was?
Yeah, absolutely. Potentially, maybe even a better value. So if you come by the site and check out the full review, I have a slew of benchmarks with the Ryzen 5 1600X, which is the top of the line, and the Ryzen 5 1500X, which is the fastest quad core. Now, if you want all the deep architectural details, go check out our review of the Ryzen 7 launch, because the Ryzen 5 is actually the same die. It's the same physical piece of silicon. AMD is just fused off cores, probably to make sure they're harvesting, more dies per wafer from the fab, but whatever. So the chips are arranged in a slightly different manner. So the 6-core Ryzen 5 1600X is comprised of two 3-core CCXs. So the 8-core chips, there's basically two quad-core CPU complexes that communicate with each other on the die. On the 6-core, there's two 3-cores, and on the quad-core, there's a pair of dual-core CCXs. Now, the Ryzen 5 1600X is a really interesting processor because it's only $250, but it's a 6-core chip, 12 threads, support for 12 threads. But the clocks are essentially the same as the 1800X. You have an XFR boost up to 4.1 gigahertz, base clock of 3.6 gigahertz, an all-core boost of 3.7. So in lightly threaded or single-threaded workloads, it's basically the fastest Ryzen out there. It's you have more thermal budget to play with because there's fewer cores, but you have the same clocks as the top-of-the-line chip. And then in this price range, there are no other 6 cores. So it is a fantastic chip for multi-threading. So if there were benchmarks where the Ryzen 5 1600X beats a Core i7 7700K because there's more CPU resources in there, even though it's clocked much lower. So the Ryzen 5 1600X is a very interesting processor, in my opinion. The Ryzen 5 1500X, still a great chip, even lower priced, but it's a quad core competing with other quad cores, although AMD does have the advantage of SMT in this price range, whereas Core i5s don't support hyperthreading. So you don't get 8 threads. With Ryzen, you do get 8 threads. So on multi-threaded workloads, the Ryzen 5 1500X also looks strong against Intel. this particular lineup for AMD as it stands right now, I think is really strong. It for the price, and you pair it with like, a sub $100 B350 motherboard, you get a killer system. A 1600X with a B350 motherboard for $350. They have 12 threads at your disposal. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. So the 1600X, excuse me, is 249.
Yeah,
retail, and you're saying that thing beats a 7700K.
Not all the time, but in multi-threaded stuff.
Yeah, which is a fair amount these days. But 7700K, a what?
Quad core, 8 threads.
Yeah, no, I know that, but price-wise, where are we at these days? I have to take a look.
I think it's like $330 right now. You can probably find it for. I got to double check.
Okay. So interesting. So like a $70-$80 cost savings there right out of the gate.
Yeah, I'll tell you in 1 second. 7700K. We are on Amazon, $345 for 7700K. So basically $100 savings.
Wild, good stuff. Paul, what do you think about Ryzen 5? Are you digging it? Would you build a rig with it?
I would if I was aiming for a bang for buck setup. I mean, that's pretty good value, $250, for the processor. Question for Marco: how's the motherboard situation these days? I know there's complaints about long boot times and that stuff. Is that getting worked out now that it's been on the market for a bit?
I would say yes in terms of long boot times. I haven't experienced long boot times. I've been experimenting with the latest beta BIOSes on the boards I've had from the beginning, just trying to see how things, performance changed and compatibility with memory changed. So I've sort of been at the bleeding edge with clean installs on fast SSDs. So I haven't really experienced long boot times. I will say this particular launch, I got beat up through no fault of AMD's. I did have a board die on me. So I had to switch all of my testing to a different board for this launch. But I think so availability of motherboards is still thin. They are coming into the channel. You can find them now. The B350 boards in particular, if you don't care about multi-GPUs, I think are an excellent value. The ASRock board that I used in our review, I think is only $99. There are boards as cheap as $79. And, you get a modern motherboard with, USB 3.1, M.2 support, all that good stuff for not a lot of money. And the total platform is also really power friendly. The 1500X was the lowest power consumption at idle and one of the lowest under load. So like it's really a nice, efficient, clean platform.
Very cool. I think just so everybody's aware, I think we are streaming on the live stream in YouTube, and previously where we had sent out messages to hop on a different stream setup. It looks like our streams are crossed, but we are live, so just at a different spot than we were. So when we tweeted things out and shared things out. So if you're watching this now, sorry if you had to come find us. But
that explains why the chat is dead. I'm watching us live, but there's no chat.
Yeah, no, it's totally different stream, but that's okay. Chris is typing stuff over the window now. I don't know what's going on, but we will journey on and keep going forward, keep plugging forward. Anyways, yeah, good stuff from AMD. It's interesting to see that they still continue to deliver value at all SKUs and price points. Impressive that we're continuing to compete with Intel. Whether you talk about the high-end chips where there's considerable cost savings, or the mid-range chips where there's less room to move, but still coming in at a better bang for the buck coefficient versus Intel in a lot of scenarios. Is that safe to say that if you're talking about a chip that's 90%, 95% of the performance of a competitive chip, and you've got maybe a 20-25% cost savings, that value equation is a little bit better? Or is that being too generous?
No, I think because ultimately at each price point you end up with more CPU compute resources with Ryzen. If your workloads will leverage those extra cores and extra threads, then yeah, it's going to be a better value. It's not always going to be faster. So you basically have to look at your workload and say, what's going to work better? Fewer higher clocked cores or more cores? And I think in the future, we're going to more multi-threading, more cores is going to be better. So I think, Ryzen is a win right now. Is it perfect? No, there's still some kinks to work out, but it's damn good.
Yeah, no, good stuff. And of course, AMD is still working on perfecting, or I should say, improving and optimizing their game performance. Have you seen some more indications of that? Have you seen patches coming in? And we certainly saw with Ashes of the Singularity, we did a follow-up piece on that where they closed the gap on that, especially on the 1080p side of gaming, the lower res gaming. Are you seeing more indication of that where they're closing the gap?
So there was another game where a patch did come out. The name is escaping me right now. We happen to be one of the publications that used Ashes in the initial launch. Yeah. Warhammer, yeah. So Warhammer's been patched. So from the original article where Ryzen 7 basically completely fell down in Ashes, it was broken. Now, the Ryzen 5 series slightly the 1600X in particular slightly outpaced the Core i5. We have new fresh numbers with the 1800X versus a Core i7 6900K, and the 6900K is still measurably faster, but it's not this huge giant gap like it was before. The gap has considerably narrowed. So for a brand new platform, I think current titles that are still popular, you will probably see some updates. Future games, I do believe game developers are going to consider Ryzen as their developing title. So in the future, these issues should be mitigated. If you play older games, I doubt they're going to get patched. So I keep a mix of stuff in the benchmark suite. I still have Crysis in there, and Crysis is very old at this point, but it has a CPU benchmark built in that is obviously not optimized for Ryzen, and Ryzen doesn't do very well. Those kind of, if you're a retro gamer or you're playing games a couple years old because you're hooked, like I still play Left 4 Dead 2. It's still my favorite mindless go kill stuff kind of game. Those old games are probably not going to get patched. If there's performance issues for Ryzen, they're probably not going to get patched. It's probably fast enough anyway because it's an older game, but those disparities are probably not going to go away. Looking to the future, I think it's going to be fine. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with Ryzen. Just game developers have to consider the architecture in their development. Yeah. No, good stuff. Left 4 Dead 2, you're still slogging on that, huh? Oh God, if I divided the number of hours played by 24 and figured out how many days of my life I'd have back if I stopped playing Left 4 Dead, it would probably be scary.
Guilty pleasures, right? Guilty pleasures.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, let's move on to the land of mobile and talk about a couple of devices that we've been playing with lately and that we got some hands-on time with. Let's talk about LG's G6. I actually put up a review this week on that, and I have the device right here. I'll try to tame the screen brightness so I don't blow out things too much, but that's probably going to be fruitless, but we'll try. So this is the LG G6. It is a really well-built phone by LG. Let's see if I can give you the the hand model here. But yeah, really well-built phone. It has a 2880 by 1440 display, QHD plus display, and it's unique in that it has very thin bezels. It has a screen to body ratio that's super tight, but not completely bezel free. And actually, I kind of like that. The mechanicals of it feel really good. Like it has a little bit of bottom bezel, a little bit of top bezel, and it seems to be just enough. Bring over my face. Okay. So it seems to be just enough. Chris is telling me to move it closer to the camera and over my face. But the setup on this device is beautiful. It really looks good. It's tight. It's very well made. It's a sort of a return from LG's previous G5 misstep that we were hoping they could pull off. The LG G5, the modular phone that LG stepped out with, was really, it was tough. Fit and finish was not so good. And this phone is like the antithesis of that. It is super high quality, brushed aluminum edges, chamfered edges, glass on the back, Gorilla Glass on the back, Gorilla Glass on the front, USB-C, powered by a Snapdragon 821 processor. So it's not the Snapdragon 835 that is in the recently announced Samsung Galaxy S8. But it is, yeah, there you go. Show some on-screen stuff there, Chris. That's good. Just to get a good feel for how this phone looks and handles. It's really an impressive phone to just hold and work with. It's a very premium experience. So Snapdragon 821, which is no slouch, right? 4 gig of RAM, Snapdragon 821, 32 gigs of storage, handles really well. Also, LG was good about not overdoing it on the skin. Their skinning this time is fairly modest. There's only a few little extra widgets, I guess, or features, I would say, that LG brings to the party. It's Android Nougat that's running, Android 7.0 in the background, that's powering this device. But you get Q-Slide, which is LG's unique sort of multitasking windowing feature. Android Nougat has that as well. But other than that, it's pretty lightly skinned. So the skinning doesn't get in the way. It doesn't feel janky or clunky. I'm hoping it doesn't suffer, Android bit rot. I hope it maintains that nimble feel, that lean feel of the OS. But it is a beautiful phone. I just can't get over how nice it is. The display is interesting. 2880 by 1440. Which is a 2-to-1 aspect ratio. If you do the math, it's 18 by 9 or 2-to-1 versus 16 by 9, which is what we're used to seeing with the standard format displays, whether it be 2560 by 1440. And so that's a little interesting. It's actually a format that reportedly cinematographers and production houses and content providers like Netflix even are going to be supporting. And Google came out and said, we want developers to support apps, native apps in 2880 by 1440 res, or the 18 by 9 format. And so it's kind of forward looking in that way. When you pull up a standard HD video, 1080p video, you do get a letterbox, not only on the top and bottom, but on the sides as well. So that's a little bit of a drawback, and LG doesn't have a real simple resolution scaling for like video or something. They do have an app scaling setting on the phone, and that helps certainly for apps. But you don't notice it in normal use when you're browsing the web, when you're email and all that good stuff, standard things like that. You're getting that full screen. You're getting that nice super tight 2880 by 1440 resolution. And the phone just feels great and handles great. Marco, did you get some time with it? Have you guys seen this device? I'm impressed. I mean, yes, it's not the latest and greatest from an SoC standpoint, Snapdragon 835, but 821 is pretty nimble.
I haven't had my hands on it. From the pictures, it looks gorgeous. It looks like a beautiful device. I haven't physically manhandled it yet, though.
Yeah.
And I'd be fine with an 821 as well. I mean, I'm still the idiot rocking a Windows phone, so I'd be fine with an 821. I don't do it. I'm not doing anything on my phone where the absolute fastest SoC is a necessity. Would I like it? Sure, but I don't need it.
Yeah, I mean that's what's interesting to me is I think people, some of the early reviews, and I didn't really knock it for the processing plant. When in light of the fact that the Galaxy S8 is coming to market so soon, we have a review unit in house. Actually, here it is right here. This is the Galaxy S8, the standard Galaxy S8, not the S8 Plus. And I'm going through that now, and that's going to be going live off embargo. The consensus was, oh, geez, they're a little bit, it's unfortunate that this came so late to the party with just an 821 on board. And I'm like, no, 821's a pretty fast chip. I mean, it was the fastest chip prior to, Qualcomm coming out with the 835. So I don't think you'll miss the horsepower, and battery life is excellent with this phone, as it is with other Snapdragon 821 devices that are coupled with Android Nougat, which has really good doze, what they call Android doze features for deep sleep. When you put it in your pocket, it actually senses, it's not being used. It goes into a real deep sleep mode and then wakes up, when you need it to. So it's a good combination, a good setup. Paul, what are you rocking these days for a cell phone?
I have the iPhone 6s Plus still, which for me is fast enough. I'm more, when I shop a smartphone, my number one thing is the camera performance. I think these days the hardware has kind of outpaced the software. They've evolved so fast. But what was the camera like on the G6? Are you happy with the pictures?
Excellent question. Yes, thanks. You're my straight man. So yeah, the camera is interesting. So you've got an interesting setup here. You've got dual rear-facing cameras, 13 megapixel. Both of them are 13 megapixel cameras, and one's a wide angle. I think it's 130 degrees or 125 degree wide angle or something like that. And one's a standard view, 70 degree angle camera. What you can do with that, obviously, is you can take wide angle shots and standard shots. You can take some interesting composition shots where you compose the standard aspect, standard view shot on top of like a fisheye effect or other backgrounds with the camera. And so you've got some interesting things you can do with it. The results, and you can see some of the samples now on screen. The results that it produces, and what I do, the mark of a quality camera for me is the way most people will shoot. Full auto mode, auto HDR on, and just pull that sucker out and take a shot. That's what you want, is have it hit that shot in auto mode. And it does really well with that. I will say it's different than what I'm used to with both Samsung's Galaxy S7 line, which I was using as a daily driver before, as well as the Pixel XL, which is my current daily driver. The shots it produces are slightly over sharpened for my liking. Some people might like that. They're also slightly oversaturated or more saturated. You can't really say over because it's a personal preference thing. So you get these really vibrant, punchy shots that are, sharp, almost a little too sharp in spots. And, that's just personal preference. I think some folks are going to say, the pictures it takes are excellent. So most folks are going to say, it looks great to me. If you're a pixel snob and you're AB-ing, you might like the natural look more of like what the Pixel XL produces or what Samsung's Galaxy line produces. iPhone, I haven't A/B'd it to the iPhone, so I can't say. What I've seen of the iPhone 6 from your generation, honestly, I think some of the high-end Android phones were beating it out. iPhone 7, I'm not as familiar with what that can produce as well, so I'll step away from that one. But it's to answer your question in short, quality camera, interesting features. A little bit of a over sharpening, a little bit too saturated in spots, maybe, but maybe that's something that they'll tweak over time with firmware. It's definitely a setting. It's a post processing effect. I think they're not necessarily capturing that.
Turning off HDR should probably help with that too. You think? I don't know if you played around with both settings or not.
Yeah, I did. And what you find with HDR is that things tend to get a little bit more saturated because it's less responsive to light, so you get a little bit darker picture. I don't know. I didn't really see much, it helping much either way. It tones down some of the colors, but you lose some of the light responsiveness without HDR on. I find the auto HDR for a lot of these phones these days works pretty well, and this is it seems better that way, from what I've seen. So yeah, that's the LG G6. We've got the Samsung Galaxy S8, which, by the way, now that I'm holding it, and Marco, I know you took a look at this. We'll let you talk to the S8 next. But what occurs to me versus the LG G6 is it's really thin, or narrow, I should say. I'm holding it up in front of the camera here. It's very narrow in the hand and tall. Okay, so these are both 5.7-inch displays. Let me see if I can flip the screen back on and then not hold my fingers over it.
5.8 on the S8.
Oh, 5.8. Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I don't have my specs in front of me, but so 5.7 LG G6, 5.8 Galaxy S8, and I need to hold them up a little bit more. Yeah, there you go. It's probably not coming through so great, but I don't know. It's just a really thin phone. There's like no bezel on the S8 at all, and I'm still getting used to it. What did you think about that thing? And let's dive right into talking about that.
It was the most attractive Android device I've seen in a long time. If you were to take all of the high design points that people like about phones in terms of thinness, small bevels, curved screens, it hits all of those marks. And then if you were to take all the geeks that want expandable storage, water resistance, dust resistance, the only thing it's missing is the removable battery. And I think fewer and fewer people care about that. The performance is killer. We have benchmarks on the site from the Snapdragon 835. It was in a test vehicle from Qualcomm. So if you want to see roughly how an S8 is likely to perform, we already have benchmarks. And the Snapdragon 835 inside that thing is easily the fastest. It's going to easily be the fastest Android device when it hits because of that Snapdragon 835. So I think it's incredibly attractive. I like how it has no bezels on the side. So it's a beautiful phone that's going to also perform well, most likely, unless something's wrong with the software, which I doubt. So I'm pretty high on the S8 and S8 Plus. I think they're good-looking phones. You get big screens in smaller chassis because of the lack of bezel. The skinning looks, the UX looks nice and lightweight. So I think lots of high notes there.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at it right now, and yeah, to me, it's really like compact. It feels really tall, a little bit tall in the hand. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's narrow and kind of stretched out a little taller. But I mean, compared to the LG G6, there's a lot less like phone here to hold. It just feels like all screen, and that's a good thing. I'm just getting used to it. It's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully it's got finger rejection, right? Because without a side bezel, people are likely to have their fingers touching areas of the screen. So hopefully it doesn't. I'm assuming that's going to be okay. I played with it for a while at the launch event and didn't see any weirdness. Without any side bezel, there's potential for weirdness if people's fingers are hitting the screen in certain spots. But we'll see. I think it's a good-looking phone. Samsung needs to have a really strong device after what happened with the Note 7. And I think, if you get used to not having the side bezels, what it ultimately means is you get more screen in a smaller phone, which is cool. You can, once you use a really big screen phone, you never want to go backwards. At least I don't. Even if it's a slightly smaller, just seems much smaller when you look at a different device that has a smaller screen. So I haven't gone backwards on any of my devices since the Galaxy S2, so years and years ago. Yeah. No, this is amazingly small for the size screen. Just looking at it, it's impressing me more and more. And of course, Samsung's Super AMOLED display is like delicious. AMOLED is like every phone should have AMOLED. I'm sorry. This is the LG G6 is IPS, a very impressive IPS display. I will say that. Very high quality. Of course, you get that 2880 by 1440 super tight resolution as well. What's the resolution on the S8 again versus the S8 Plus? I'm trying to think. It's QHD. It's I think it's the same as the G6. The 1440, but it's not 2560 because it's 2-to-1. What was the res on the G6?
2880 by 1440.
I think that's it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And so, yeah, no, it's basically it's the same. It's definitely a little bit narrower screen than the G6. So one-handed operation is like a fly on this thing.
So it's actually a little higher res, 2960 by 1440.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, all right, interesting. Yeah,
what do you guys think about the position of the fingerprint sensor on it? Is it pretty easy to reach?
So I'm just holding an S8 right now, and I would say for a right-handed operation, yes, my index finger's right on it. Let's try a left-handed operation. Okay, I gotta kind of move back and find it. Not as convenient as a center-mounted fingerprint reader. Let me see. Yeah, if anything, I would have mounted it lower, like underneath the camera, directly in the center. But it is off to a side. With the S8, I don't think it's a problem. With the S8 Plus, where you got to reach a little bit more, maybe it is. Marco, what do you think about that?
I think it's fine where it is. Because the other thing to keep in mind with the S8 is there's multiple modes to unlock it. It has iris scanner, it has face scanner. The face scanner, I guess some people have already fooled it with pictures, but with the iris scanner and with the face scanner or with pins, the fingerprint sensor becomes only one means to unlock the device. You have other ways to do it. So I wouldn't have picked a position myself.
Yeah.
And since, all of us are right-handed anyway, except for those few demons that are left-handed. So,
Paul, you got to be lefty, right? Come on.
I'm right-handed.
My son's lefty, and he's no demon.
I know.
No, I know.
Marco's studies do not represent that of HotHardware. Where's that little disclaimer there?
Yeah, no. This is actually a really cool phone. It is unique, no question about that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to dig into it in the days ahead. Interesting note about the LG G6, and we hope that LG gets a handle on this in the courtroom. Unfortunately, they've got a bit of an issue with their boot loop issues they had on previous generation phones, the G4 and a few others actually. Google Nexus 5X, which is made by LG, is now experiencing that same boot loop lockup. Basically, the phone goes into a boot loop, and it won't boot fully. It just keeps rebooting itself. Some folks have been hesitant about the G6 because of that. I would think that LG has that handle on that, and I know that I've actually seen the inside of this phone when we were debuting it at the press event, and they've got a really good thermal solution in there. It's really well made. The battery, of course, everybody's looking at making sure batteries are safe these days. There's all sorts of precautions for that. I think they've probably got a handle on it for this device, but yeah, they've got an issue where there's a class action suit, and so it's tough to have to deal with that when you just launch a new phone and one this impressive. It's a really good phone. I think where LG is going to have to compete a little bit more with something like the Galaxy S8 is on price, and I think they're doing that. You can get a free Google Home bundled in for the price of the device. I think it's $720 on contract, or excuse me, $720 if you bought it outright with like AT&T. I think is their highest priced one. And I think it ranges down to like $650 on T-Mobile. But with that, you get a free Google Home, $129 value or something like that. So I think you'll see maybe once that promo is over, who knows, maybe the price drifts down a little bit and the G6 gets a little bit more competitive from a price standpoint. But interesting stuff. The smartphone landscape is heating back up again. Marco, you ever going to move off a Windows phone?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, the creators update came down today on the phone. So I'm going to wipe it, start clean, see how it behaves, because after you've had a few updates come in, things get flaky. So I'm going to start clean. If it behaves, I'll ride it out a little longer. If I have any issues, I'm done. I'm getting an S8.
You're getting an S8. That would be your phone.
At this point, it was like I said when I left the launch. That was like the first Android phone in a long time that I played with and said, "Oh, I think I want that."
Yeah, no, it is. It's impressive. It's impressive that how much they get, how much display they get into so little device, and it's got a Snapdragon 835 on there, which I can't wait to benchmark. We actually have, if you want to check out Hot Hardware, we do have a Snapdragon 835 prototype vehicle benchmarked that Qualcomm had us out to their event, and we put it through its paces, and yeah, we're seeing what we expect to see from the Galaxy S8, and what we saw in that article was somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15% higher CPU throughput, depending on the application, and up to 22 to 25% on the graphics and gaming side. So, the GPU side, the Adreno 540 graphics that's on board the Snapdragon 835 is nicely more robust. So, yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's move on to notebooks, shall we? Talk about real quick Dell's Inspiron 7000 gaming notebook. This is a new machine by Dell. It came out at CES timeframe, and 15-inch format. It is what I would call a budget model. I guess it's hard to call it budget, but it's a mainstream, sort of value conscious gaming laptop, which doesn't always exist in the same sentence. Usually gaming laptops are big, bad, and expensive, right, Paul? And yes. Paul's our resident gaming laptop guy. He loves them. But yeah, so 15-inch machine, GeForce GTX 1050 on board. 7th gen Kaby Lake Core i5 quad core 7300 HQ quad core boost to 3.5 gigahertz, 8 gig of RAM, and 256 gig NVMe SSD, all for $849. So pretty impressive stuff.
That's fair to call it a budget gaming laptop at that price. I mean,
yeah.
you're 150 under a grand. That's pretty good.
Yeah. And you get your 1050 Ti. It's a 1050 Ti, actually, 4 gig, not just a straight 1050. And yeah, interesting machine. It has some pretty beefy, muscle bound specs for not a lot of money. Paul, what do you think? Is this your kind of rig, or do you prefer something a little bit larger? Are you in the 17-inch format?
Yeah, I still like the 17-inch and something a little more powerful than a 1050 Ti. But if you're shopping for a budget laptop, you're not going to get, I don't think, any lower than this. You start dipping below $850, you're looking at integrated graphics, and it's still not to the point where you want to be playing games on that.
Yeah. What's also interesting about this machine, it's got a pretty good battery setup on it. I want to look at what the specs are on the battery. Yeah, 74 watt hour 6-cell integrated battery. It is not user serviceable, I don't think. It says integrated, but you can actually get at the RAM and the SSD, and there's a 2.5-inch drive bay as well if you wanted to put a standard SATA drive in there.
So the battery, it is under that same panel. It's not like you can swap it like a regular notebook, but someone could service it. It's just 2 wires hanging off of it.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yeah. But so that 74 watt hour battery, when you game on it, with the GPU, with the GeForce 1050 Ti, obviously you're going to eat that battery up pretty quick. However, when we ran it through our standard battery loop tests for light duty workloads, where we're doing things like looping HD video, it kicks over to the integrated graphics on Kaby Lake. And that thing is a battery monster at that point. It actually scored one of the best scores we've ever seen from any gaming laptop, certainly, and then even competed with the likes and bested the likes of many ultrabooks, thin and light ultrabooks that are much more lower powered than it. So Kaby Lake kicked back a gear, right, and just needed to loop some video on its integrated graphics core, and this thing was sipping. So it's kind of like it was the best of both worlds. You can game, and if you want to just browse the web and do something light duty, it's going to actually hang with you. So, cool. Yeah, no, it was good stuff. I mean, And from a performance standpoint, interesting. There's the view now. Actually, Chris is scanning through how you can get under the hood. So yeah, there's the battery, there's the RAM, and you can see all the coolers for the GPU and CPU. But you can get at the NVMe SSD. You can get at the RAM to upgrade it if you want, and you can drop another drive in there too on a 2.5-inch bay. From a performance standpoint, this thing actually offered, full HD 1080p gaming, resolution gaming, at playable frame rates on just about any current game title at medium to high image quality. And I'd say mostly high image quality with a 1050 Ti. So when you talk about things like Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is a DX12 title, this machine was able to clip off its 1080 score, and Tomb Raider was 56 frames per second. So you're in the 50s, you're pushing almost 60 frames per second in a DX12 title with a high image quality preset. That's pretty good for an $850 notebook. So good stuff from the folks at Dell. Interesting in that, it's an Inspiron, and it, performance-wise hangs with the likes of an Alienware. We actually show it hanging with the Alienware 13R3. So a little bit of cross-pollination perhaps into the genetics there with Dell and their Alienware team. So good stuff. Good stuff. All right.
You know what else has no problem getting playable frame rates in DX12 titles?
I think something that you have might have no problem.
Let me see if I can lift it. Look at this thing. Look at this thing.
That is a beast. What is it?
This is something I'm working on right now. I literally have a page and a half left to write. I'm hoping to have this article up tomorrow. This is Gigabyte's Aorus GeForce GTX 1080 TTI 1080 Ti 11G overclocked beast. So a couple weeks ago, the 1080 Ti launched, and it was the fastest consumer graphics card out there. The custom overclocked models, the first wave is starting to hit. Gigabyte is first in-house. Holy crap, this is a fast graphics card.
Holy crap.
Yeah, well, come to the site. When a Titan X's graph is, trailing by a good margin, you have a fast graphics card in your hand. The other thing, Dave was at the TI launch when NVIDIA's CEO said these things are going to overclock to 2 gigahertz. So yeah. Our reference TI just missed. I hit 1999. So effectively it was 2 gigahertz, but I just missed. This guy overclocked literally by just moving the temperature and power targets, almost 2.1 gigahertz. So very, very fun GPU. It's got a little bit of a price premium, $719, but come by the site. Hopefully tomorrow is Thursday. If it's not up tomorrow, it's going to be up Friday at the absolute latest, but come by the site if you want the full scoop. Absolutely killer, beastly 1080 Ti from Gigabyte. It's pretty hardcore.
Nice. So, would it hang with, I'm trying to do the numbers. Nah, it's probably hard to get there from here because we're still talking fewer CUDA cores, 256 fewer CUDA cores. I was going to ask the question that everybody's probably thinking, will it hang with a Titan XP, small p?
Well, so here's the thing, right? If you're shader bound, maybe not, but not every game is.
Right. So
like the memory is just as fast.
Yeah.
There's absolutely probably no reason to spend twice as much on a Titan XP versus this in real world, unless you want the longest bar, unless you're compensating and you need the longest bar. Then you're probably fine with this. It's super fast, and as much as we love those crazy high-end graphics cards, there's a small fraction of people that actually have them. The bulk of the market's in, the mainstream mid-range cards, which, by the way, come by the site next week. That's all I'm going to say for that stuff. But there will be some cool mid-range cards next week. But for high-end, this thing is a monster.
Yeah, Paul, are you compensating with your GPU?
I am not. I don't have the 1080 Ti or the Titan XP, but I'd take either one.
Paul's rocking a GT 740 still. He doesn't have to compensate.
No, I'm actually on a 1070, which is working well for the 5 minutes of gameplay that I do per month. So
real men deal with crappy frame rate, right? Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, it's an amazing time in what we do. Whether you talk again, the folks on the PC side or the mobile side, there's just so much to look at these days, and we're like flat out. Paul, what are you working on right now? What's in your queue?
Well, I have a HP Spectre X360, their new 15-inch model for this year. That review is actually done, and we'll have that posted soon. And then we're gonna switch things up pretty soon, since we're doing show and tell. Actually stood in line to get one of those suckers, and yeah, so that'll be next.
Awesome. Nintendo Switch and HP's Spectre X360. Gotcha. 13-inch Spectre?
No, this is the 15-inch that they sent.
The 15. Beautiful. So lots of good stuff there. Speaking of notebooks, Marco.
Yes.
Are we going to play Santa Claus this month with folks?
Oh, yeah. It's already started. So first, the usual pitch. We cover lots of stuff in the podcast, but we have way more stuff on the site. So make sure you come to the site, check out all the reviews, all the news, dozens of articles posted every day in the news. And if you were on the site, you would know that we have partnered up with Razer and Killer Networking, and we're giving away a Razer Blade, a gorgeous Razer Blade gaming notebook, a 14-inch Razer Blade with an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 GPU inside, a Core i7 7700 HQ, 16 gigs of RAM, a fast SSD, Windows 10, all of the good stuff. And all you have to do to win it is be active on our site, make some friends, chatting with some other geeks, like a couple Facebook posts, and if you share it out, even better. We have a cool hashtag. Maybe we'll see some cool posts that we could share on the podcast one day if people use the right hashtag, and we can find some fun posts. But yeah, come by the site. Razer is giving away this beautiful machine with us. You would absolutely love it. Anybody would love to have this guy. So come by the site and win.
Chris, I don't know if you can put that up on the screen for folks, but Razer put this up for grabs with us, and we are very grateful. Really nice machine. We're actually getting one in to review. The specs look really nice. We haven't experienced it ourselves yet, but the specs are set up. The design looks beautiful. This is a pretty cool laptop. 14-inch IPS display, 1920 by 1080, GeForce GTX 1060, as you said, Marco. 7700 HQ Kaby Lake processor. I mean, this thing's dialed for sound. And it is a great machine, and of course, Killer Networking, that technology we all know and love, that absolutely helps minimize latency and ping when gaming. So game prioritization and quality of service technology in the NIC built in. So good stuff from Razer and Killer, and we're giving it away free, trying to give back to the community. We do this almost every month at HotHardware.com, pretty much every month. And sometimes we build some crazy killer gaming rigs. Other times we get some pretty cool mobile stuff, and Razer's in the mix this time. And boy, did they really put up something nice. So I'd like to win this. Dang it.
Absolutely.
$1,899 value. Wow.
Yeah.
So, good stuff. And yeah, all you got to do is just jump into hothardware.com, sign up if you're not already a member. And you can just be active in the community, and simple stuff. The hashtag is WinRazerHotHardware. So there you go. WinRazerHotHardware. Razer spelled R-A-Z-E-R. So you hashtag that in some of your social shares, and you'll get noticed as well. And that's kind of how we do it. We try to give folks an opportunity to get noticed, and then go from there. Pick a winner. So, guys, any words of wisdom to add before we sign off?
I think we're ready to roll, baby.
Don't
roll.
Spit in the wind. Don't tug on the mask of the Lone Ranger or something like that.
Don't take any wooden nickels.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I hope this worked out pretty well. I think we had a little problem with the streams, but I think we'll get it hammered out for the next time. We are working now actually with the folks at XSplit, so stay tuned there. We'll probably be doing a little promo with them where they're helping us on the production side for the stream, and those are the tools that Chris works with. So thanks to the folks at XSplit for that. And we will get our streams set up right, though, and tweet it out to the proper links for you folks. But other than that, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time. Take care.